Good morning, everyone. Why don't we start the meeting? We have a couple of other board members who will be joining us shortly. This is the July 25th meeting of the Metro North Long Island Committee. Do we have any? We have three public speakers. First is George Haikelis. George?
Good morning. My name is George Haikelis. I'm the president of the Institute for Rational Urban Mobility. IRM is a New York City-based not-for-profit corporation concerned with reducing traffic congestion in dense urban places. IRM has long supported making better use of the region's commuter rail lines by remaking them into a regional rail system with frequent service, integrated fares, and through running at Penn Station. IRM also supports plans to facilitate access from points west of the Hudson and from Long Island to Manhattan's east side, the nation's largest concentration of office activity. However, the tragic events in Norway last week point out the serious weaknesses in the current design for MTA's Long Island Railroad East Side Access Project. Building a terminal station in a deep cavern 150 feet below Park Avenue places as many as 8,000 Long Island Railroad passengers at great risk in the event of a fire or terrorist attack. IRM urges the MTA Board to seriously consider the warning articulated in the attached materials developed in consultation with four well-respected fire safety egress experts. It is not too late to redirect the project to the 5 existing tracks that lead to the upper-level loop at Grand Central Terminal, the world's largest railway station. This plan was developed by the Delcan Corp., one of Canada's leading engineering firms. When first presented to the MTA Board over 5 years ago, MTA engineering staff acted as judge and jury and declared it not feasible. IRM asked then, and continues to plead now, that the MTA have an independent review of this proposal. The upper-level loop plan would save passengers 3 to 4 minutes of travel time in each direction, would avoid the risk associated with egress from a deep cavern station. It would be far less costly to operate and still could be completed more quickly and at a lower cost than the current plan. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Mr. Orrin Getz.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Board of Directors. First thing this morning, I'd like to welcome back a board member who has been out for a while, and that's Carl Wartendijk, representing Rockland County.
Yep.
I'm glad to see he has made a recovery and is able to rejoin the MTA Board meetings and these committee meetings.
I was going to say something, but you beat me to it. Carl has been a consultant to East Side Access and has been under Grand Central Station for many years now, trying to come back, and we're glad to see you come back, Carl.
One of the things I'd like to mention is that on July 13th, I attended the New Jersey Transit Board meeting, and they released the scorecard results. And if anybody saw the front page of the Star Ledger, here it is. And it says, New Jersey Transit customers not happy. And the interesting part of it is that the rail portion was given only a 4.5 out of a possible 0 to 10 rating. And I think part of that was what was happening on the Northeast Corridor and in and out of Penn Station. That, for example, in one day, a 2-day period, there were 3 power failures during rush hour to disrupt service. And that clearly shows the weakness of the infrastructure in Penn Station. And what I'd like to say is that since the capital budget of New Jersey Transit was at the same meeting, myself and other people had recommended that New Jersey Transit defer the purchasing of 300 new multi-level rail cars and spend money in the infrastructure, particularly the power infrastructure, in and out of Penn Station, because that is a major weakness. And we're asking the Long Island Railroad also to consider that both the Long Island Railroad and the New Jersey Transit are the major tenants of Penn Station, and that they should seriously consider making a better investment for the weaknesses of the infrastructure in Penn Station. Yes, Amtrak is the owner, but New Jersey Transit and the MTA and the Long Island Railroad have to seriously consider additional items in their capital program to ensure that there is a reliable operation in Penn Station. There are people, as I mentioned last month, that want to destroy Amtrak, and this Schuster-Miker pending legislation is just one item where they want to chop it up. Amtrak is suffering from a desperate... Yes. For a recovery because it's trying to survive. And therefore, we have to consider it doesn't have the resources to make all the infrastructure requirements that are necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Getz. Last public speaker, Mr. Murray Bowden.
Morning. I represent concerned grandparents, which means the next generation. I'm going to talk about the railroad cars you were ordering. By the way, this tie I bought in Giverny, outside of France. We were in France for 2 weeks with our grandson, Daniel, on an intergenerational trip with Elder Hostel, no parents. It was spectacular. He learned a lot and I learned a lot. I looked at a lot of railroad cars while I was there. The Paris subway has a number of lines with rubber tires on their trains. Very quiet. And some of the cars are 8 cars long with no partitions between them. You can see from one end of the train to the other. Now the question arises, why are we buying cars that were designed essentially 150 years ago? There's been a number of innovations in the railroad industry, some of which have not been applied to the cars you're buying. Well, this is a new world. I use an iPad and a phone. Unfortunately, none of you have computers in front of you at the board meeting. Oh, thank you. That's right. And every one of you should have a computer in front of you as well. Because that's the way the world is going. And if you don't get it, get out. We can't afford you if you don't understand that what he has in front of him is where you need to be. And that book that you have there should stop. Because cost and a number of other things. This is a changing world. I'm finished. Most of you are finished. My grandson who uses that, and my granddaughter who goes click, 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 and walks around with it in her hand, is where we're going. And if you don't understand that transition from the generation of massive computers like that to little computers like that, then it's time to retire and let the younger generation take over. Some of you remember my granddaughter, Emily, who was here with Daniel when Daniel spoke here sometime. She wanted to come today and speak, but she's starting a bicycle trip. She's 13 years old, and she's this tall. And she's starting a bicycle trip from Williamstown, Massachusetts to Provincetown over the next 2 weeks, and so she couldn't be here. But she wants to come, and she wants the practice of speaking for you the same as Daniel did. He thanks you all for the Metro North station at Yankee Stadium, which is what he asked for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Approval of the minutes of June 27th. Are there any changes to the minutes?
Motion made.
All in favor? Okay. Are there any changes to the work plan? I do not believe so. Okay. We will go on to MTA Long Island Railroad. Helena.
Good morning. I would also like to add my welcome to Commissioner Wartendijk. It's a pleasure to see you back and looking healthy, and anything we can catch you up on, you just let us know. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn to Ray Kenny.
Good morning, everyone. The operating report starts on page number 18. The on-time performance goal for the Long Island Railroad is 95.1%. Overall on-time performance for June was 93.73%. June's total peak was 92.71, with the AM peak finishing at 96.06 and the PM ending at 88.92. June's total off-peak on-time performance was 94.17, with the weekday off-peak finishing at 94.4 and the weekend off-peak ending at 93.59. During June, 98.8% of peak trains met our seating standard, 99.4% of scheduled trips were completed, 303 trains operated more than 15 minutes late. Our year-to-date OTP up to June 30th was 93.93. The details are listed on pages 19 and 20. There were two 100% rush hours during June, one in the AM and one in the PM. And year-to-date, there have been 29, 18 in the AM and 11 in the PM. Our AM peak car availability was met each day in June, and the total fleet MBDF for May, noting the 1 month lag, was 175,687 miles versus a goal of 150,000 miles. Yes, sir.
I'd like to take you to page 24 of the book and like to ask you why there are 80 standees on the Huntington branch, 20 on Oyster Bay, and 29 on Port Jeff.
Yes, sir. In the case of the Oyster Bay, that is not programmed. That is because we had either a service disruption or a short train, train with not the regular number of cars. The 80 on the Huntington line, that is programmatic. That has to do with the one of the trains we operate that has 10 cars versus a desired 12 cars because we don't have layup space.
Is that the problem that Mr. Pally has been referring to for some extended period of time?
Yes, sir.
And don't you think somebody ought to communicate with the appropriate elected officials to tell them it's their fault?
We have done that.
I think it's time we did it again.
And we will continue to do so. It is an unfortunate set of circumstances where, a new yard is needed on the Huntington branch, and neither the Huntington elected officials nor anyone up there, I don't want to use the word really cares, but cares enough to assist the railroad in finding a suitable site. And as a result of that, this is what you end up with.
You see, here's the problem. The people who are standing, especially in the warm weather, are going to turn around and blame MTA.
Of course. Yeah.
And everybody out there is going to say the same thing. That's wrong. And it seems to me that something has got to be done by way of notification to those people as to where the fault lies. And if it means handing out leaflets, telling them to call their local elected officials, do it. Let me ask you, though, the same question about the Long Branch line on page 25, where you've got 91 of them.
Most of that is programmatic as well.
Same reason?
Same reason. It's not the issue, though, is not on the Long Beach branch. It's really more of a system issue. It's the peak of the peak, and the trains that are operating in that time frame are maxed out in terms of the size of the constants, not because they're limited by the infrastructure.
Is there anything we can do to help these folks? Because, look, there has been some decline in service, ridership, and the like on the Long Island Railroad. We catch the blame for it. Perhaps rightly, perhaps wrongly. And it seems to me that we ought to make clear what the problems are and what the potential solutions are. And so let me ask you if you could do this for me. At some point in the fall, could you take a look at these standee situations? Let the board have a memorandum, 1 page is fine, email is even better, and just tell us what the reason is, why it is, so that we can make sure it is disseminated in the appropriate quarters.
That would be
But
fine.
we need a solution. It's not fair.
Jim?
While I'm bothering you,
Oh, go ahead, Charles. Finish. Go ahead.
while I'm bothering you, let me bother you on page 27 and tell me why there has been such an increase in employee injuries.
The employee injury increase, there's no smoking gun in terms of a specific particular injury or a particular cause. There is a slight increase because of the winter weather that we had. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have a comment and a question regarding the standee report as well. And adding on to what Commissioner Merdler said, it would be good to see a report. I've gotten reports of PM peak standees, in which when you have combined, my question is, when you have combined trains, does that shows up as additional standees?
Yes.
On this?
Yes.
Right, but it's an average over per day, so if there's one day which is really awful, it would show up as a low number. So anytime, I just want to make sure people understand this, anytime you see additional standees on this report, it means something bad happened.
It means, yeah.
Probably. 1 or 2 days. I mean, and then you notice I think there's one day there was 72 PM peak delays caused by...
June 17th.
Yeah, lightning strikes. I think that caused a lot of the standees here. And some of the, I mean, again, going back to the Port Jefferson branch or Huntington, I think there's a lot of stress there, and that's something we should, take a look at, because even PM peak, you have, if you lose a train or you lose a few cars, you already have standees. So anytime it's much worse. And also regarding standees, I think people have to be aware that the number of standees in this report is not the actual standees. This assumes every seat is taken on the train, which people don't do. So you really have, in some ways, severe crowding situations whenever you cancel a train on one of these branches. I just want to make sure that that's understood. It would be good to see a report because, as I've said, I think we got to look at what type of capital improvements we need and how many passengers that helps. And having someone stand from Penn Station or even from Jamaica all the way east to beyond Hicksville that's a long time to stand.
Well, as we also know, there are program standees, and then there are people who stand because they don't want to sit in the middle seat.
Right.
So,
yes,
to some degree.
But even in
that situation, you try to figure out what you can do in that regard.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
But
We'll take
the seat.
Women, Jim.
Thank you. Just piling on.
That's okay.
No,
that's what the meeting is for.
I did want to just add a small thought to Ira's comment, and that is, Ray, that if we're going to look at these two problematic lines, that it probably would make sense, if it's feasible, to get some actual counts on a few sort of random days, so that we get closer to the truth, both in terms of the empty seat, the open seat and middle seats, and the whether or not 80 in the case of the Huntington branch is high, low, or on target, because there's no way of knowing, we just want to get some gauge for the real level of pain that's out there.
Okay. We routinely do that, so we can bring that together.
Okay. Norman?
Well, I guess you might consider this piling off, but Ray, just to give us a little bit of perspective on the matter, how long have you been seeking, in rough decades, how long have you been seeking a yard in that area?
At least 40 years. Since
40
years.
years.
It was electrified in 1970.
So we want that report done promptly.
I don't want to lose sight of the fact that I have had a number of community contacts in Huntington. My staff has been working on what might be strategic opportunities. We have a long-term vision, for more improved scoot service between Port Jeff and Huntington, using future DMU equipment, so that there would be more frequent daytime service, perhaps an opportunity for some reverse commuting that would benefit Stony Brook. We see the East Side Access connection being one where people get on a train at Huntington to access Grand Central, and not make a different transfer along the way. As you know, part of the strategy for East Side Access is to push transfers further out and not in Jamaica. That's part of, untangling Jamaica. So we are very much conscious of what's happening in Huntington. They have been working on a housing issue that the community's been wrestling with. That is moving forward. Sometimes you want to make sure you're not piling on a community. So we have been purposely letting that move forward and, find its own course. But we very much understand the importance of Huntington, and we'll share that with the board.
whether this has been ongoing as a problem for 40 years, 30 years, or 5 centuries. It seems to me that that isn't a sound reason for letting a bad situation continue to fester. And so to the extent we can do anything to help stimulate some results that are positive, if a yard cannot be obtained, is there an alternative? Are there any other options? I just suggest to you that the people standing, if this is a continuing habit, if it isn't the middle seat situation, are entitled to better.
It is absolutely, program standees. It's not the middle seat issue, and I consider this a very important issue as we get to, full use of East Side access, when greater pressure will even be applied to Huntington. So we are with you, Commissioner. We believe that there needs to be a solution for the Huntington branch, and we will be sharing some ideas with you on how we think we can solve that problem.
Mitch, can I?
Jeff?
Forgive my ignorance. What are the loading guidelines for Long Island Railroad and as compared to Metro North? Do you assume a certain number of passengers standing for a certain period of time?
It's no. It's we have I forget the exact numbers. I think it's 90 or 95% for the AMP.
And what's the average ride of a Long Island Railroad commuter and a Metro North commuter?
Long Island Railroad average ride is just under an hour.
Right.
Average.
Jeff, I believe we have the same loading standards. I know we do in the peak period. I think, as Ray said, it's 95%. With regard to how long people travel, people on Metro North generally travel longer distances. The average trip lengths are longer. I don't know in terms of time how that compares.
I guess I just want to put a bit in perspective with a little bit of tough love. And I don't know what it takes and the cost it takes to add these extra trains in the train yards. But even the subways that I take sometimes takes me 40 minutes or 45 minutes when I'm transferring. When I take the Long Island Railroad from Bayside, I don't sit at all. Not every person has a seat in the transit system that take 40, 45 minutes, in some cases over an hour. So I can appreciate that. We should strive for excellence. We should strive to have everyone a seat. But we should also be conscious of the choices that we make and the costs that incur them for the extra marginal passenger. I know that may sound a little tough, but I'm just, coming from New York City where we stand a lot of the times and transfer 2 or 3 times for a bus to a subway, I felt we need to put a little bit in perspective. We should always strive for it, but we should be careful of our choices and how much it costs.
Okay.
One last comment. Jeff,
Ira, go ahead.
Agree, Jeff, but that's why you pay a lot more on the railroad. All right. We'll talk later. But anyway, just to note,
and New York City residents do take Long Island Railroad, including myself, so there are a significant portion of that as well. So.
Yes, and as you point out, they stand. The Port Washington branch actually had this past month some standees, probably some significant delays, and that resulted in standees.
Okay. I think moving on.
We can get past the first item?
Mark,
a
we're
very
ready.
important discussion.
Sounds like a great segue to the finance report.
Yes.
Good morning. I'd say the overall theme of my finance and ridership report is, unfortunately, Long Island Railroad continues to see declines in ridership. Despite that, we're managing the budget very tightly, and our financial condition remains sound. Before I go into the report that's contained in the book, I want to refer to the ridership memo that was circulated to the board members. From that, you'll see that during the month of June, the Long Island Railroad transported 7.2 million customers. That was 1.4% less than June of 2010. Both commutation and non-commutation were down compared to last year. Commutation was down 0.6%, while monthly tickets weren't down quite as much. There were only 397 less tickets sold compared to last year. The weekly tickets were down by almost 4.5%. This is despite the fact that the employment sector continues and the outlook continues to improve. Non-commutation was down by a larger amount, 2.5%. However, that was a dramatic improvement over May when it was down 5.5%. Peak ticket sales declined. Off-peak ticket sales grew. Leisure travel continues to be a great growth area for the Long Island Railroad. It was up another 5% in June. And I have been reporting in the last few months on the new Belmont service through the end of June.
The Long Island Railroad had carried almost 30,000 passengers to Belmont. That's 56% more than last year, and generated $193,000 in new revenue from that service. Where does that leave us year-to-date? Year-to-date, total ridership is down 1.7% compared to 2010. Any questions on ridership before I move to the budget?
Any questions?
Okay. The regular financial report begins on page 30 of the book, and most of the data I'll be referring to is in the table on page 33. During the month of May, the Long Island Railroad generated $309 million in revenue. That was $31 million unfavorable to the budget. However, most of this is on the reimbursable side due to various delayed capital projects. So as I've mentioned several times before, there's an offsetting expense reduction as well. We've collected $226 million in fares, and that's $3.8 million less than budget, obviously for the reasons I just mentioned a minute ago. And the capital reimbursements are below budget by about $26 billion. Again, that's primarily due to two major projects, East Side Access and Positive Train Control, both of which are accompanied by reduced expenses. On expense side, total expenses were $719 million. That's $31 million, or 4% favorable to the budget. On the labor front, payroll-related expenses, it's just a tick above budget, but it's the second month in a row we've actually generated a surplus on payroll compared to budget. And I want to go back. That's largely due to the fact that most of the overage occurred very early in the year when we had all the severe weather storms, and we generated basically went about $3 million over budget on weather-related overtime. Speaking of overtime, we've spent a total of $36 million on overtime, which is $4 million above budget. Again, this is almost entirely due to the 67,000 unanticipated hours due to the storms in January and February. Through this point in the year, overtime, the percentage that we're over is 13%, which is obviously, as if you looked at one of the old reports, earlier in this year it was over by 31%. So you can see that after we've gotten through the winter, the percentage has improved. And just to summarize that, through May, the number of hours worked on overtime has dropped by 4.5% compared to 2010. I see George member raising their hand.
Charles?
Page 41. Two things, if I may, because the May report shows continued overtime in excess of budget. Could we, without causing you great pain, get a separation of the statistics as they relate to overtime by reason of vacancies as contrasted with overtime by reason of absentee coverage?
Sorry. Yes, and you may recall last month we provided the committee with a report on open jobs and availability. I have the numbers through, that was through, I think that was through April. At that time, while on absentee coverage, we had been down 16.8% compared to the year before. It was over budget by 25%. And on the, that's absentee coverage. We broke that out separately. Open jobs, the reason there were some open jobs at maintenance of equipment earlier in the year, there was a larger number of retirements than we had anticipated at the end of 2010, and due to the timing of getting those classes together, we incurred some overtime related to open jobs, which we're fixing now because we have several classes coming through. But I can provide the detail if you'd like.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If you just take May as an atypical month or as a typical month, whatever it is, and am I to conclude that you can fix most of the overtime excesses where they come from vacancies, but the absentee end is sufficiently unpredictable? Is that probable or what?
I wouldn't say unpredictable. Certainly, open jobs, it's a more direct correlation, and we can assess our staffing pattern and hire as appropriate. For absenteeism, I wouldn't say it's unpredictable. I mean, we have trends, we have figures. We look at that. We have an availability task force that meets every month to look at that. And we've established a plan that we're pursuing for the rest of this year. It's a multi-point plan to address absenteeism related to FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, in particular departments where we've seen greater trends of absenteeism. So I would want to say that that's unpredictable or out of control. We have certain ability to assess the data and target initiatives to try and reduce absenteeism.
Do you have in place any program that targets chronic absenteeism among individuals or areas?
Yes, there's an absentee control program in place where as individuals are absent for a certain period of time without explanation. I don't have all the details on it I can provide you, but in general what happens is if an employee is absent for a series of times, it starts to, they receive points, which can proceed to disciplinary action in certain circumstances.
Do you have a labor management committee type of program under which the unions and the employer try to deal with this kind of situation?
Our labor relations department works very closely with the collective bargaining units. These issues, as well as many other issues, frequently come up. I'll defer.
All right. I'd like to know if there is a labor management program under which both labor and management get together to try and deal with absenteeism. You're not getting anywhere without the cooperation of labor, and labor ain't getting anywhere without your cooperation.
Agreed. I'll follow up with you on that. To conclude the financial report, on page 47 are the overall financial indicators for the Long Island Railroad. As you can see there, the year-to-date fare box operating ratio is 46.2%. That's how we had originally calculated it, but per the MTA, adjusting for consistencies between the two railroads, the Long Island Railroad fare box operating ratio is 56.4%. That concludes the financial report.
Any questions on the financial report? If not, we've done, I think,
Right, we're going to proceed to the capital program report, and it's on page, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to express concern about the trend in ridership. We still seem to be behind in ridership. We're not recovering back to expected. Even non-commutation ridership has lagged. I mean, the only thing that I think came up this month the only thing that didn't decline is commutation ridership. I'm just wondering do we have any idea what part of the decline in non-commutation ridership is due to the penalties for onboard ticket purchase or any of these other the new fare structure, in a way, the fare penalties that we had? Do we have any idea what that?
I can't relate any specific ridership trends to our fare policy with regard to ticket refunds and processing fees. I think, the overall economy and the lack of job growth is contributing to Long Island Railroad ridership being down. And some of the reports I've read shows Long Island continues to be behind other parts of the state in terms of bringing jobs back.
The one thing, I know it's not non-commutation, but one survey we do on a regular basis is when mail-and ride customers disenroll, if that's a word, in the program. We ask them why, and 61% of them have said it's because they either are no longer working, they moved, or retired.
Do you know what the other 39%?
I'd have to. I'll
be
certainly
interesting to
get
see.
that. Yes.
I mean, that would be. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we're going to turn to page 55 in the book, and it's Long Island Railroad's capital program highlights and updates. I'm pleased, I'm just going to point out on our mentoring program, the progress we're making. Queens Village, Valley Stream work is commenced, Stony Brook is completed. That program is moving along very well, and we're pleased with the progress on the mentoring of minority and disadvantaged business enterprises and the work they're doing for us. Not in the book, but something I just want to, continue to highlight for this committee is our ongoing work that's being performed by Amtrak. They have been very committed to the short-term work plan, improving maintenance in the tunnels. They have discovered additional defects as they go along, so the short-term plan has extended beyond June 30th. I am very pleased to say that we've had an initial meeting on their long-term plan for total track replacement. They've given us several options. We have a working group that does include Micah Rodniciano's Eastside Access Group to evaluate the proposals that Amtrak has given us and try to determine the way in which we can get total track replacement done in the 4 tunnels, as well as ensure that we can continue progress on Eastside Access, which has tremendous amount of work in the Herald interlocking in the next few years. We will do a number of work sessions this summer, and I anticipate in September to be back to the committee and give you an update on the long-term plan. It will entail adjustments to our capital program as we consider this safety sensitive, and we need to ensure that we can fund our share of the improved track conditions in the East River tunnels. So I don't want to lose sight of that one.
Alina, could you also, as part of that and as part of your report back to the board and the committee regarding Penn Station, could you also raise and provide us information with regard to the power source issues that were raised by one of our public speakers with regard to Amtrak's ability to finance the necessity of maintaining and improving the power source system, both for us and for New Jersey Transit at Penn Station?
We can address that.
That would be very helpful.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we're going to turn to the information items beginning on page 57. Long Island Railroad has 4 information items in the book, pages 57 through 67. They involve use of city ticket for our Metz Willets Point station. As you can see from the staff summary on page 58, that we would like to ensure uniform fare policy with our station and Mets fans going to baseball games and tennis fans going to the tennis stadium at the Metz Willets Point Station, the opportunity on weekends to use city ticket. We're following the policy that Metro North has used with Yankee Stadium on its use of city ticket. So this is a pilot program, and we'd like to extend that pilot now to that station. The second item I'm going to do all the information items together and then take questions, just in the interest of time. The second information item is on our September 12th timetable change. We have a number of track activities that require us to make schedule modifications. We also use this as an opportunity to do our right-of-way cleanup. One of the important elements, we're trying to take advantage of that time to clear away old scrap that needs to be taken out of the right-of-way. One of the important track outages that I do have to highlight for you is on the Montauk branch. It's the bridge replacement, Tuesday, August 2nd through Thursday, August 4th. It's described on page 62, the last bullet. And this is the Hill Station Road Bridge that we have to go in and put a new bridge in. As you'll recall, on Easter weekend, this bridge was hit by a major lumber truck. The bridge was knocked out, and we had to refortify using the road. The road has actually been, the vehicle road has been closed while we put fortification under the bridge so that we could allow train service to continue. We're going to take that track out, put a new bridge in. We'll be able to open up the road. and we have a very tight schedule that we're trying to do that on. The third item is our annual environmental conservation audit, and there's a summary about our activities and the remediation efforts that we continue to make progress on. And the final item is our retail development at Penn Station. There's a report in about Penn Station retail. This is the first time you're seeing this report. We're trying to match a more full report, in fact, that Metro North has regularly done on Grand Central. We have, much less space at Penn under our control, so you can see the retail report is limited to just that space. Vornado has the bulk of the retail space in Penn Station. So with those 4 items, I am happy to take any questions.
Pat? Elena, 2 things, maybe 3 things. Can you just address Vinny Tessitore, who couldn't join us today, the concerns he had in the email he sent over the weekend?
Yes.
Having said that, I'm totally supportive of the city ticket plan, even though the reduction in fares is relatively small and limited in scope. And then the second thing is, can I just make a suggestion with respect to email alerts with respect to the track work programs? I think it would be helpful, assuming there's space available, to indicate in the email alerts how soon before the scheduled train people have to arrive at the bus to make the bus.
Oh, for the bus connection, yes, yes. We will work on that, and we will do that with some additional station materials as well, but I'll see if we can put that into email alerts.
If that's possible, I think it'd be helpful.
That's a very good suggestion. Let me look at that one. I have to apologize. I meant to comment on Commissioner Tessitore and his email. He was very concerned about where we were going to do ticket collection. I was in email contact with him. I don't think he understood that the plan was for us to do city ticket collection at the gate for games at Citi Field. We're going to meet. I emailed Vinny and said, let's get together. We'll go over the protocols. Ray has developed, a whole list of things we need to take into account. Vinny was satisfied, Commissioner Tessitore, was satisfied with that. And as soon as he's back, we'll be meeting with him.
Okay, can I jump in for one more?
Sure.
The retail at Penn Station, which obviously pales in significance in many ways to that at Grand Central, my sense was put on hold during the halcyon days of 2007 and 2008 when the Moynihan Station redevelopment was a real possibility. Given the fact that that project has been delayed and is actually subject to a Wall Street Journal article today, is there a plan to take another look at the retail, and I realize the Vornado Long Island Railroad issues, to upgrade the retail over some period of years at Penn Station?
I will say that there was not only the Penn Station redevelopment project, but also most significantly was the ARC project. ARC, required a real reconfiguration of space around our 34th Street entrance. So we had to actually put a number of things on hold. Jeff Rosen is here. Jeff and I have done numerous walks around Penn. We did them in anticipation of ARC, and when the ARC project collapsed, we did them again. We're very focused on what we call a Penn Station vision, and we have worked on a technical scope of work statement with both Amtrak, New Jersey Transit, and Moynihan redevelopment that says, what do we have to do to reconfigure. What do we need to think about to get a better vision of reconfiguring space at Penn to accommodate all of the things that will take place in the next 2 decades, including, the Farley connection. We will be putting that out. We're all jointly funding that vision. We'll get somebody that will assist us. It's supposed to cover 2 things. One is pedestrian flow, as well as basic wayfinding. There are people who enter the station and still can't find New Jersey Transit's operation. So we are looking at how can we better help customers navigate, what can we do to enhance retail opportunity, and what can we do to have better overall customer flow. So we'll be back to this committee with that as we move it forward. You are absolutely right. A lot of things were put on hold at Penn because of both Moynihan and ARC. We've all come to the conclusion we need to move it forward now.
Okay. Ira?
Jeff?
Go ahead, Ira.
Okay. Yeah, just on Penn Station, I'm very thankful. PCAC meeting, Jeff Rosen was there. I had a discussion with him about Penn, and we're very happy that we're moving ahead on that, because Penn is difficult for passengers, especially people who aren't born and grew up in New York City. I know, because I don't look at the signs, but I find I usually see people circling around looking at, not knowing where to go, and that's a problem. Also, the retail situation is a problem, and it's definitely noticed by our commuters. On Metz-Willett's point, I'm very happy. I want to thank Ray for emailing me recently regarding some complaints we had from our community council members regarding crowding after the games. The railroad is addressing that problem. Very happy about that. In conjunction with the city ticket, we're in full support of the city ticket, making consistent with Metro North, and we're very pleased about addressing those crowding problems, putting in the extra trains. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Just two quick questions. Obviously, the city ticket has been widely successful by getting, I think, a million more riders on to the system. Just out of curiosity, how come this wasn't done sooner? I mean, we've been running the Yankee Stadium for some time. And second, how many more people are we assuming is going to take the train as a result of the city ticket?
We actually did not move forward on city ticket initially. We were waiting for Citi Field Stadium parking to be completed. At one point, we had, substantial ridership increases while they were under construction, and we felt that would be, just very difficult with our gating operation. Unfortunately, as parking improved at Citi Field, our ridership has come down. We did think it was important to move forward on this fare policy and make it more uniform. It's, we think 150 added customers, alone would make up for the revenue loss, and that's not even tapping into tennis, which has tremendous ridership on the number 7. If we can bring some of that over to Long Island Railroad, that will relieve crowding on the number 7 and give us a ridership opportunity. So we're very pleased to move forward. We think the time is right. We're going to do some additional, marketing efforts just to get the word out that it's available.
Charles?
I have 3 questions. On page 60, you have the timetable changes. And the fundamental question I'd like to ask is, why can't some of this work be done at night? Why can't more of it be done? Why can't all of it be done other than emergency work?
I would have to analyze each one specifically and give you that, I think, separately from this meeting. I will tell you, nighttime work, just as this is just an overall statement, can have complications on a number of fronts. One is, we of course want to ensure worker safety. 2, we need to be community sensitive. Many of our tracks are literally in people's backyards. And it can be very difficult to do the proper lighting and noise abatement that satisfies homeowners who are trying to sleep at night. So we have to look at each one of these.
Asking the question and asking you to take a look at it is, to the extent that we can do work at night, the extent to which we can do work during the weekend periods when there's not a summer vacation issue and the like, you have less of an impediment in terms of delays and the like.
Well, I'm going to defer to Ray. We'll take a look at each one of these. Of course, at night, we're moving a lot of equipment trains. So we were going to have the, same worker safety issues.
It may be that on examination you conclude it's not efficient. But I'd like to have somebody look at that, because these changes are not helpful to too many people. The second question I have is with respect to the environmental issues. It's a 2-part question. First, with respect to item number 5, Yaphank, did the investigation disclose there was groundwater contamination or not?
No. I've got Paul Mansky, who is our in charge of our environmental review. Paul, if you would just stand.
That's a $10 million item. That's why I'm asking.
Yes.
Yeah, no, there is no documented groundwater.
And that's, the surface will cost $10 million to remediate? The second part of that is, to what extent, if any, is there federal or state reimbursement for the work in remediation?
Paul, we've sought that.
We're talking about telephone numbers here.
Yeah. I think we've sought some assistance in the past.
Yeah, also, yeah, we put forth, but the reality is that when you have an environmental impairment, you're responsible, and that's the approach that the government takes. So
Was the impairment caused by us or by a predecessor owner?
it is unclear. The material is lead-bearing stone, which we don't use in the railroad, and it's very close to Stony Brook, which had a reactor, but we have no documentation to be able to prove that could be.
May I respectfully suggest that at such time, if any, as your law department has an opportunity to do this, take a good hard look at claim overs on some of these. You're talking about tens upon tens of millions of dollars here. Okay?
Yeah.
And my last question is, who is responsible for the cleanliness of Penn Station? Or lack thereof?
Cleanliness at Penn? At Penn.
At Penn.
Our level is one that we have a cleaning service that does do cleaning. So, the concourse level is the responsibility of the Long Island Railroad.
The reason I ask that question is if you walk into Penn Station and you walk into Grand Central Station, you walked into two different worlds. Grand Central is well maintained. I can't say the same about Penn Station. And the question is, what can we do to improve that?
We certainly will take a look at it. We welcome any suggestions. We recognize the amount of traffic through Penn it is a tremendous stress on the way the facility is set up right now.
You walk into Grand Central Station, it's a pleasure. You walk into Penn Station, it's a disaster.
Anyone else?
One about night work. They do night work. They do night work in my neighborhood, which has been just for the record. For some reason, Queens on the main line, they do 24/7 work, track work. So, and that gets a source of complaints, the neighborhood complaints, and I've complained myself. That doesn't bother me, but this a block away, I hear it.
And we do try, for example, in this staff summer, you'll see most of it is on weekends, where we're trying to make it transparent to the customer, where we have enough other track routes we can take so that it actually doesn't disrupt the weekend customer service. But I'll look at each one individually just to see.
It depends on whose ox cord.
Yes, exactly.
And where one lives. And where one lives. Okay. Anything else for Helena on the railroad? If not, we'll move over to Metro North. Howard?
Okay. Thank you. Good morning. And first, again, I want to also welcome Carl back. It's great to see you again, and we welcome your involvement going forward. There are three things I want to mention, which we'll go into a little more detail as we get into the meeting. First is we will do a report on Grand Central that Jeff Rosen and Randy Fleischer will be doing, talking about some really exciting new developments and where the whole retail, how we're looking to modify the retail within Grand Central, both with the proposed Apple lease, which we'll be getting later at the Real Estate Committee, as well as a longer-term vision in a number of places where we can improve Grand Central. Secondly is we'll have an action on the MH, the procurement of the MH, and this is a major step for Metro North, something that for both us and Connecticut will have major positive customer impact as well as cost impact. And then thirdly, and I want to then lead into Bob's operating report, we will speak about what happened on Friday in the extreme heat on the New Haven line. This is another part of the line. This is unlike the cars, and I've talked about some of the infrastructure issues we have. These are incidents that happened in where we have old catenary in the state of Connecticut, and the weather impact, how that affected it, and what happened on Friday. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Bob, who will talk Friday, and then we'll go into the reports themselves. Bob?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, Friday was a very difficult day on Metro North, especially on the New Haven line. Overall, for the day, we only ran 79.9%. We had 137 trains were affected. 127 of those were due to the extraordinary extreme heat that we had all over the territory, but it had its greatest impact on the New Haven line where we have the overhead wire, and in particular between Norwalk and Devon, Milford, where we still have the old fixed catenary system. It's basically about 20 miles of old catenary. The first event took place somewhere around 1:30 in the afternoon. We got a train that got into trouble up in Bridgeport because of sagging wire. And then about an hour later, we had a train got into trouble for the same reason down in Greens Farm. And then about an hour and a half after that, we had another train that got in trouble in Stratford, also due to the same reason. It was just sagging wire. The triangular system just was the auxiliary was sagging at the same level as the trolley was. We took some. First off, it was to try to get trains through there. It was trying to thread a needle because we basically had anywhere from 2 to 3 of our 4 tracks out of service from Stamford all the way up to Devon because of the trains that were broke down. We have a catenary project that's going on between Greens Farm and Bridgeport, which has 2 tracks out of service as it is. And then between Stamford and Norwalk, we didn't have a wire problem, but due to the intense heat, we lost a transformer up in South Norwalk. That took the power out on 2 of the tracks between Stamford and Norwalk. And when that happened, one of the trains was crossing over from 4 to 2 at South Norwalk, so we basically lost 3 of the 4 tracks at that point in time. And we lost 2 other transformers, one at Burr Road and another one up at Devon, and that was all basically due to the compound within the insulators just turned to liquid and dripped out, and it lost some of its properties, and so we wound up tripping the breakers and blowing the insulators at 3 locations. I mean, there were reports that we had 107, 108 degree temperatures in Bridgeport. The temperature was intense. I mean, we did have customers stranded on the trains because once we lost power, we had to kill the power. One train in particular, 1532, had some issues. The customers started calling 911 within 10 minutes of the train breaking down, and EMS was looking to respond. Customers actually removed some of the windows. As one of our ops managers was walking down to the train, he actually saw people passing him. They had actually jumped off the train. So he wound up taking all tracks out of service once we found that there were people on the tracks. We got that all cleared up, and we were actually able to, within, I think, about 45 minutes, we were actually able to, the damage wasn't too bad at that particular location where this train had the incident with all the people, and we were able to re-energize it. It had a flip shoe, so we were able to lower the pan on that one shoe. The wire was still intact, and we moved the train to Greens Farm about a half a mile up the track, and EMS was waiting for them when they got there and supplied them with water. We did have 3 reported. We had 3 people that we treated for heat exhaustion on that train. A bunch of people reported problems. I think it was up to 25. But when they got up to Greens Farm, we opened up the doors and got them off onto the platform. The EMS, I believe, treated 3. Our injury reports show 3 people. I think 2 of them were pregnant women, and I'm not quite sure what the other one was. Treated, released, transferred to other trains, but the day was a complete disaster because for the rest of the day we had just jockeying around trains, equipment we were running short of. We wound up combining trains down in GCT just to lower the level of the impact we were making on the wire in that area. I think we combined 7 trains. We ran 5 diesels in place of the electrics to take some of the stress off the wire. And eventually, when the sun went down, I mean, we still had residual delays, but we were able to get everybody home late, but we did get them home. We were a little bit proactive on Saturday because they were still predicting 100-degree plus temperatures. In fact, I believe we broke the record again in Central Park on Saturday. It was 100 degrees down here. So on Saturday, we actually lowered the speed in that area between 241 and 261, lowered it down to 50 miles an hour maximum authorized speed. And on some of the sharper curves, we lowered the speed to 40. We knew we would take some train delays because of that, but I think we took 8 in total. It was better to be safe than sorry. We also ran some additional diesels on Saturday to lower the impact on the wire. And actually, Saturday, I think we ran 94.2% on Saturday, so it wasn't all that bad. And yesterday, we were back to normal. We took all the restrictions off and just had the normal level restrictions that we have for 90-degree temperatures. So it was a trying day, a long day, but like I said, although we got them home late, we did get everybody home eventually. So that was Friday.
And the maintenance of the catenary are the responsibility of the state of Connecticut?
Well, no, we maintain it. They are in the process of replacing it. The project has been going on for
almost as long as the Huntington station.
Not quite, but
yours, almost.
And unfortunately, we still have a ways to go. The section that we're in will probably not get completed until 2013, and then that will leave us from Bridgeport to Milford and from South Norwalk to Greens Farm. So we will still have 50 or so miles of the old stuff out there. So it's going to be 2016, 2017 before it's all new constant tension wire.
So we can only hope on the New Haven line, number one, it doesn't snow next year, and number two, it doesn't get above 90 degrees.
Right.
Yeah.
Other than that, we got a problem.
Correct.
Others are in good shape.
Yes. Okay.
Hey, Mitch, can I ask a quick
Yes,
question?
Pat.
How much roughly is the state of Connecticut behind in investment on these facilities that contributed in part to the delays?
Yeah, let me answer that. I think with the action, first of all, there are a couple of critical places where investment is needed by the state of Connecticut. The action today with the M8 cars will basically provide us with a first-class fleet. And so that is one major step that Connecticut has agreed with, is providing the money, and we will now have a first-class fleet for the New Haven line for the first time in 30 years. So that's a major step.
Connecticut providing 65% of the money.
Yes. The other places, there are a number of places where we're looking for investment to be made, but the two critical areas that remain are the catenary wire and the movable bridges. There are 4 movable bridges that are older than the catenary wire, which also have terrible problems getting up and down in the heat or the cold weather. They have to be replaced. That's hundreds of millions of dollars. The catenary wire has to be replaced. Bob laid out to you where we are in round numbers today. 40% of the catenary in the state of Connecticut is either old or the tracks are out of service to do the project. So those are the two major areas. One of the issues has been historically that the federal government, Amtrak, has invested almost no money in the MTA facilities, literally from Penn Station until New Haven. And so with all the improvements that were made to Boston, almost nothing was put in on the New Haven line. And so the state of Connecticut is bearing that cost as we did in New York State. There it's obviously a much bigger territory, and there they have the movable bridges we don't have. So there is a real, the good news is that in the last few years, and particularly since with Governor Malloy coming in, they've been actively taking actions to provide the funding to move these investments forward.
So can I just make this point, and I recognize first the difference between capital and operating expense. 1, 2, if we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars and we apply Connecticut's 65% share, we're talking $120, $130 million. This is not a comment directed at you, Howard, or Helena, but I'll note the difference between the approach taken with respect to Connecticut when it didn't deliver on capital dollars and the approach taken with respect to Nassau County with respect to $26 million on Long Island Bus. I just note that for the record and find that of interest.
I'm happy you mentioned Amtrak, because that was actually going to be my question. If Amtrak makes no capital investment in this...
No, Ira, Amtrak...
But they do pay operating.
Amtrak pays operating expenses. There is actually a process underway based on federal legislation from a few years ago that's looking at how much Amtrak needs to pay us for where they operate over us, as well as how much commuter rail has to pay Amtrak where they operate over them. So there's that legislation which has some effect potentially on Long Island, but as Helena's pointed out, they have separate agreements that have to be taken into account. So I don't want to go too much into that, but on the capital side, Amtrak, it's their determination what they want to spend. They've spent very little for the section between New Rochelle and New Haven in all their projects, very small amounts comparatively. And the state, just Pat, to your point, just so clear, the state of Connecticut pays 100% of the infrastructure in the state of Connecticut. Right, so that's not a share.
I got it.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
But that makes the case even more.
Yeah, I'm
so
not trying to argue.
No,
Yeah.
I understand. So instead of Connecticut being short 120 or 130, they're short 200. And my point is even greater, I think, with respect to the disparate treatment of Nassau County with respect to bus. Not an issue for either of you, but point interesting to me.
Well, the Amtrak, I think, is interesting, too.
Okay, next.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'll do the operator report.
Okay, go ahead.
The status of operation starts on page 72 in your agenda book. System OTP for the month was at 96.8%. That's below our goal of 97.8%. The Hudson line ran at 97.7. The Harlem line ran at 97.4. And the New Haven line ran at 95.8. It should be noted that year-to-date end of June, the Harlem and the Hudson line are actually slightly above goal for the year at 97.8, and the New Haven line is at 94.8, and they're still recovering from the terrible January and February that we had on the New Haven line. The AM peak and the AM reverse were both above goal. The PM peak and the off peak were below goal for the month of June. We had 23 days where we ran above 25% during the month of June. We had 7 days that we ran below 95, and 1 day where we ran below 90. That was on June 8th. We had some equipment failures. We ran 88% on that particular day. 567 trains operated late out of a total of...
I'm sorry, Charles. I'm sorry.
Pages 73 and... the other one a second. It appears that in the month of June, there has been an increase, a significant increase in the number of trains late, over 15 minutes late, as against last year, and also in terms of the number of trains that were terminated, 73 and 77. And my question is, any explanation?
For the month of June, terminated 49.
In June, you had 174 trains over 15 minutes late. This year, last year you had 79. Number of trains terminated were 49. This year, 18 last year. Why?
Well, we probably didn't run 96.8% for the... excuse me? Yeah, we ran 98% last year for that month. We ran 96.8. We did have a number of incidents that delayed 10 or more trains. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 8 days where we, which is out of the ordinary for Metro North, where we had delays to 10 or more trains. Nothing in particular that I would cite it to. It just we had more failures than we normally had during the month of June. Consus compliance for the month of June, we were at 99.2%. The New Haven line was at 98.3. The Harlem and Hudson were both at 99.9. On the west of Hudson, We operated at 96.4% in June. That's at our goal of 96.4. 59 trains operated late out of the 1646 scheduled. The Port Jervis line was 94.7, below goal, and the Pascack Valley was at 97.6, which was above goal. 99.3% of our trips were completed on the west of Hudson during the month of June. The MDBF for the month of May, it's a month behind, was 147,369 against a goal of 125,000. The New Haven line, the 2s, 4s, and 6s, they were above goal at 97 and change. The Harlem and Hudson Electrics ran above goal at 518,000, and the diesel service also operated above goal at 126,000. And right now, preliminary figures show us that June will also be above goal. It should be noted the BL20s. It's historically been a weak point this year. They are approximately 20% below goal. We are in the process of a retrofit program to correct some of these deficiencies. Should be completed by the end of fall. We're working on the engine and propulsion systems and air compressors. Actually, we have 3 engines out of service right now due to failed air compressors. So that's the report. I'll answer any questions if you have it. If not, I'm going to turn it over.
Any questions on operations?
Then I will turn it over to Ann Kirsch, who will give the safety report.
Thank you. Good morning. You'll find the safety statistics in your books beginning on page 79. As you'll see, we are 35% over our total employee injuries through May, January through May. Of note, though, if we take January out of that equation, we're only 6% over. So if we go February through June, we're 6% over our 2010. So January really had a significant impact on our employee injuries. And the rest of the information is in there. Customer injuries were 35% over year to date, and we're looking at the same information and taking the January and February numbers out of that, it reduces those numbers as well. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions on safety? If not,
okay. Joe's sitting in for Kim today.
Finances?
Yeah. Good morning. The results for May can be found on page 84 in the committee book. Overall results through May are a continuation of the general trends that we've reported on over the last several months, as both the operating deficit and the cash deficit are favorable to budget. The positive results are primarily due to lower expenditure levels in both the operating and capital project activities, as well as higher fare box revenue and other non-passenger revenue. For the month, the operating revenues and expenses were virtually on target to budget, while reimbursable costs were slightly higher at about $3.8 million over budget, as we're catching up on some of the timing differences that were underruns earlier in the year are now incurred in the month of May. By major component, the revenues year to date are $2.6 million above budget. $1.2 million of that is relative to higher ridership, which Bob will take you into more detail on, and it's from the fare box revenues through the year. Other operating revenues are the remainder of the favorable variance on revenues at $1.4 million, which is primarily due to higher GCT net retail operations revenues, as well as higher parking revenues at outlying stations. On the expense side, May year-to-date, non-reimbursable and reimbursable expenses, and this before non-cash adjustments, were 5.6% lower than budget. It's predominantly due to non-labor costs, which were the majority of the variance, and its timing differences in some of our contractual services and professional service fees, as well as lower expenditures on materials and supplies. Combined reimbursable and non-reimbursable labor costs were about $1.7 million, or less than about half of 1% lower than budget through the year. And for the month, operating labor costs were virtually on target to budget. The culmination of both the higher revenues and lower expenses, as well as cash adjustments for various timing of payments versus accrual, resulted in a net cash deficit of about $136 million through May, which was 18% lower than budget. And overall, our adjusted fare operating ratio was 66.1% through May, which is 3.2 percentage points better than what we had projected. That's generally the conclusion of the overall results. I'll take any questions if you have any. Otherwise, Bob will take you through ridership.
Any questions on finances? Ridership?
Okay. Good morning. The May ridership report is in your book starting on page 102. I'm just going to summarize briefly the results for June, which were emailed out to you last week. Overall, June ridership was up 2.4%. Commutation ridership grew 1.7%. Non-commutation rail ridership grew 3.5%. And connecting services declined 5% compared to June of 2010. Overall, year-to-date, rail ridership, commutation, non-commutation total is all up about 1.5%, and the connecting service ridership of the three services managed by Metro North are down about 4% year-to-date. Any questions?
Any question on ridership? Capital program?
Good morning. Capital program report begins on page 112. I'd just like to update you briefly. On the Hudson line, we are running the morning commute on track 1, which is the opposite side, to accommodate the ongoing work at the Peekskill train station to make the egress for our passengers a little bit better. That project is going well. The 3 Hudson Line stations, Scarborough, Phillips Manor, and Ossining, are complete right now, and those stations came out very well. And the Fordham Station building work is complete. We will be embarking on the outbound platform work this fall and into next year. And with regard to our commitments and completions, the graph is on page 117. I'd just like to advise you that we are pretty much tracking our plan to date. It will be we have an aggressive plan for the third and fourth quarter, which will be a little bit more difficult to make, but as of now, we're about on schedule there. Any questions?
Any questions on Jim?
Just briefly, Tim, I'm glad to hear that things are moving ahead smartly in Peekskill. I know that the town or the city fathers show evidence some significant interest in that project, and just hoping that one way or another you're maintaining dialogue with them as you go forward.
Yes, we will make sure that we continue to do that, and so far I know of no complaints. Things are going well with the rehab work there.
Any other questions on capital program? Information items.
Okay, we have the environmental audit report is in the book. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Charles.
To what extent, if
Seth, can you speak to that, please? Or Karen, you're in the back, I see you. Chuck asked, are we asking for, what are we seeking reimbursement specifically regards to Bridge 23 in Mount Vernon? Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, then I think we'll move to the Grand Central report. Jeff is going to highlight this one.
Adrian, can we get that turned on? Thanks. Thanks very much. It's great to be here. We have, I think, a very positive report this year. It's so positive that I've taken it upon myself to give it myself. This is an annual report that Nancy usually gives. I'd like to give all due credit to Nancy and her team, though, and to dwell for a minute on this first chart. We have Nancy's detailed report in the usual format is in your book and provides quite a lot of detail about this. Last year, the story we were here to tell, which we were very pleased with fundamentally, was that our revenues were flat or marginally up in a recession, which we thought was pretty good, and we managed to increase our net revenues significantly by even more significantly, reducing our operating expense, in part through the efforts of our retail manager, Jones Lang LaSalle. As you can see, in 2010, the trend continued dramatically up, but on both fronts. We have increased our revenues and further reduced our expenses, so that in 2010 our net income from Grand Central Retail started to approach $19 million, which is certainly very significant in terms of our overall real estate portfolio. The improvement in revenues obviously directly reflects an improvement in tenant sales, gross sales. As most of you know, we have a combination. We have base rent under our leases, and then under many of our leases we have percentage rent. What's happened is as leases have rolled over after 10 years of initial term, is that, and we've relet through RFPs, competitive RFPs, we've been able to increase the base rent that we've been collecting, effectively consolidating or bringing into the guaranteed portion of our income stream what had previously been collected as percentage rent under old leases, and then we've seen some improvement on those numbers still. So this represents the status quo, and I think a status quo that we're very proud of because it's dynamic in its own right. I might also mention that a certain amount of the favorable change here is due to enhanced marketing efforts and favorable results in our Vanderbilt events activity. We saw a fairly dramatic decrease there due to the downturn in the economy. That's come back. We saw a 20% increase between 2009 and 2010, and year-to-date in 2011 we're doing even better. But what I want to tell you now about the future of Grand Central Retail, and to some extent, as they say, the future is now. You know that dream where you realize that you had an extra room in your apartment or your home? It's sort of the opposite of an anxiety dream. This is not that. We had to work hard to find this, and we did it with our eyes open. There are three pieces to this that I want to describe. I'm sorry I don't have a pointer, but over on the right there you can see the area over the market. Then in the middle is an area that I'll refer to as the east balcony and the northeast balcony. And over on the left, an area outlined in red dots is at a level, 2 levels below the main concourse level, what we call Carey's Hole. Someone, if you're interested, can tell you the story of Mr. Carey and why that's called Carey's Hole, where time doesn't allow. But that is an area that has been historically, for the last generation or so, occupied by back-of-the-house railroad operations, locker rooms, rooms for trainmen to sleep, and so between shifts and so on. That you'll recall that the board had authorized a project to relocate those operations upstairs to an area around where the old CBS studios had been, the tennis court, and that project is nearing completion. We expect those people to move by the end of August, by September this year, and that has obviously created an opportunity. And we had pledged to you when that project was approved that we would be working to exploit the retail potential of that area. So how do these all combine? It's a little bit of a kind of a domino thing. On the east balcony, as you know, we've had a restaurant called Metrazor since the beginning when the terminal was renovated. That space obviously was sort of discovered, if you will, or created in the renovation. The stairway that leads up there did not exist previously. That space was something of an untested commodity. The rent that we got from Metrazor
is quite a lot lower than the rent that we got from Michael Jordan's and Cipriani. They're only paying $263,000 a year there under their lease, and they are only occupying the east balcony. They do not occupy the northeast balcony. That area is currently available for special events and for public use for viewing and so on, but frankly you need a trained guide to get there. The public doesn't know about it. It's very underutilized, I'll even say forlorn, and has been landlocked by reason of the Metrozor use. Very pleased to announce that we will be taking to the Finance Committee today a proposal to lease that space to Apple for a new Apple store. It was necessary to work a three-way arrangement with Metrozor to buy Metrozor out of its lease. It's going to be expensive to do that, but it's going to be well worth it. Our income, overall income in the first year from the Apple lease will be some $1.1 million as compared to the $236,000 number that I mentioned. I'd be glad to take any questions about the economics of that transaction, but what I really wanted to focus on in this committee is the sort of operational and aesthetic implications of this transaction. Obviously, we're very concerned about the legacy of Grand Central, the ambience of it, the historic fabric, and frankly, we wouldn't want just any retailer there. I think the space provides challenges for a retailer. It's up the stairs. I think Apple is perhaps uniquely situated, capable of luring people up those stairs with their iconography and their tremendous drawing power, and they see the space the same way. There had been, when this was rumored some months ago, there were some pictures of sort of rocket ships up there on the balcony. I'm happy to tell you this is going to be extremely discreet. We've got very, very limited signage. There aren't going to be any of those big pictures of the product facing out into the concourse, and the signage will be limited. You can see on the upper left here a layout of how the store lays out. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'm not sure I need it anymore, but is that working? It doesn't matter. Up in the upper left hand, you can see how the store lays out. The store, as you can see, encompasses not only the east balcony and the northeast balcony, but the elevator lobby, which will now be a leasable area and is part of the economics of the deal. Service to the space will be provided out the top end of the elevator lobby there onto Depew Place. We've worked very, very closely with MTA Police, with Operations, Bob Saraceni and his group, to address a myriad of operational issues in terms of deliveries, crowd control, and the like, and we're very satisfied that this is going to work splendidly. Here is a picture of it. As you can see, you can barely see it. There is a single apple hanging from the middle arch, which is actually somewhat smaller than the current Metrozor sign, and where there are two illuminated Metrozor menu boards presentations at the landings. You can see two smaller still apples. Here's a illustration of what it looks like from the northeast balcony, looking across to the east balcony. Again, I think the vocabulary of the Apple design is familiar to most of you. This section here on the northeast balcony will have the Genius Bar. It's not pictured here, but that's up against the rear wall. Will actually not be visible from the main concourse. And this is a picture of what it looks like in the elevator lobby. Okay, I think we can turn that off. The other thing I want to mention as we sort of, well, I'll go back to the other picture. The other thing I want to mention is that we will also be taking to the Finance Committee today a staff summary proposing to enter into a lease with Shake Shack. in the dining concourse. We think for the Zocalo space, that lease has come due. We think Shake Shack in its own way has very dramatic potential to increase traffic and the excitement around the dining concourse. Between the two, looking around the room, I guess not all of you are in the demographic, or the demo, as we say in the business, but I can't imagine why anybody, any kid in Westchester would want to do anything other than go into Grand Central and shop at Apple and eat at Shake Shack. So we really do think we're sort of turbocharging it for the next generation. So let me now talk a little bit about the implications for these other spaces. The part of the consideration that we're getting from Apple is that as they are taking the second basement, the lowest level of Carey's Hall, for back of the house. Incidentally, they're also taking some space upstairs in B Hall. That is space that is currently under current code not accessible. They are building fire stairs and a new common elevator that will be available to us as we fit out and repurpose the first basement of Carey's Hall, which gives us a real leg up as we proceed with that. We have some different ways to go, and we're preparing an RFP for the remainder of Carey's Hall, which can also include blowing out the back of the hot and crusty space and building potentially a bigger and better retail facility there, possibly a restaurant, possibly with some connectivity to Vanderbilt. But one of the very likely scenarios is that we take some of that space on the first basement of Carey's Hall, and we move storage that is currently serving the market, as well as police facility that is above the market, and that area on the right there in blue would then be available for restaurant use. Indeed, at the time of the initial restoration, that was a contemplation of the design team. At the time, I guess the decision was made to walk before we ran. The viability of the market, indeed the whole operation, had not been proven. So we didn't do it then, but we think we're ready to do it now, and that should also allow us to add dollars to our bottom line. So that's the overall vision. I'd be glad to take any questions about that. We also have Randy's here, and who has been leading a extraordinarily dedicated Metro North interdisciplinary Metro North group as we've worked hard to address operational construction issues with Apple and Shake Shack, and we have Chief Cohen here too, who can talk to security issues if anyone has
Before we answer any
that.
questions, I just want to add a couple of points. First of all, there's been a very intense, as Jeff just mentioned, effort between real estate and Metro North, and then with the MTA police, on how all this will work. And in the end, what Jeff has laid out is a program that meets a couple of really critical goals. It maintains Grand Central as the iconic structure and place that it is. It helps us increase revenue, which is always important in these days. And thirdly, we believe it'll attract more riders to Metro North. As he said somewhat facetiously, we actually believe that we will see people coming in as Grand Central more and more becomes a destination in and of itself, and truly the second center of New York City. And this will help us, both the initial action and the future ones, are major steps along that way.
Pat?
Yeah, this is terrific news. Reflects effective stewardship of the real estate portfolio, and we all owe you, Jeff, a thanks. And I just note that kids from Long Island and Jersey can take the 1 and 2 and then the shuttle and be able to eat at Shake Shack and buy Apple computers. And obviously the point I'm making is that, and this is a long-term goal, we don't have the same retail opportunities at Penn Station, and hopefully one day we will. But
that was the Pat. I thank you for making that point. That was the exact same point I was going to make. It doesn't make, I strongly support these efforts. These have been fantastic, and I congratulate Jeff. But what it does is it makes the Penn Station customers no longer second-class citizens. It now makes them third-class citizens in relation to the comparison with what we can do at Grand Central. And that's, a variety of factors have gone into that over the last 40 years. It's nobody's fault who is sitting here, but it does obviously, the difference between the two systems and the two stations is night and day. In fact, if you're in Penn Station, you can't see the day because you can't see the sun in that regard. And I'm not saying that facetiously. It's true in that regard.
So this creates not only a digital but a cheeseburger divide between the two facilities.
Well, those two of us from Long Island are not saying this sarcastically. We're not saying this to denigrate the tremendous work that's been done at Grand Central and our total support for that in any way, shape, or form. But it does, I think, point up the problems that Penn Station has, some of which are man-made, some of which are made over a period of time. I leaned over to Jim in your discussion about the Apple and Shake Shack leases and said to him, what we should have done is make them also go into Penn Station at the same time. You want the good, you get the bad at the same time, and see then what we would have been able to accomplish. Because that may at the moment be the only way until Long Island Railroad customers can get to Grand Central in 2016 the right way, to do it in a fashion that's going to be able to provide them with the benefits that we really should be able to provide. As I said, it's nobody's fault. It just exacerbates the problem in that regard.
There's no question about it. Let me just pick up on Helena's earlier comments and an allusion that Pat made initially, which is that there are a lot of different people at Penn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different, when I say people, a lot of different institutions at Penn. We have these deficiencies very firmly in mind. We've been engaged directly in efforts to address them. I will say that the canvas that the MTA itself has to work with there is obviously there's not a lot of travertine. There's also not a lot of headroom. The spaces are much more constrained. As Pat mentioned, everything to the north of the 33rd Street connector is Vornado retail. And I think that I certainly don't want to get ahead of myself. We've been having some discussions with Vornado. I certainly don't want to speak for them. I will say that I think that they were caught in the same limbo that we were as we all sort of waited for ARC. And, clearly there are opportunities there through collaborative effort to reimagine both the public circulation and the retail there in a dramatic way, not to mention the space upstairs. And as Moynihan moves forward, we had hoped that both ARC and Moynihan were imminent such that there would be both an opportunity to sort of pick up the pieces after ARC created all sorts of new penetrations down at the level of our concourse, and as Amtrak vacated space upstairs to take with New Jersey Transit to take advantage of those opportunities to create a much greater public space. Moynihan obviously is still on the books, and we're looking forward to running down those follow-on efforts. But for the moment, our focus is on sitting with Vornado and trying to come to a common understanding that will benefit both of us as well as the riding public.
Ira, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm just looking forward to your similar presentation on Penn Station.
Yeah. Charles, you had a question?
No, just a comment, if I may. First, by way of congratulations to Jeff and his team, but secondly, a suggestion. I would not be too restrictive in terms of signage on the part of Apple. I am, of course, an Apple aficionado, as many are, but one of the things that was always delightful at Grand Central were the Eastman Kodak pictorial depictions, and I would think that perhaps Apple can outdo that.
Yeah, I think that might be a minority view, Charles. But,
that's what Microsoft says.
Let me put it this way: Apple has a kind of a Zen approach to these things. Or I don't know my Eastern religion. I should steer clear of that. They have a minimalist approach to these things, which I think is very compatible with our view of the way things should be there. And I'll say the State Historic Preservation Officer's view. We've presented these plans to SHPO, and that is an important part of our process.
I have one question. Does Landmarks have to approve any of this?
No,
Landmarks Commission?
This facility is not subject to New York City landmarks.
Okay.
We do have, as I say, a process with the State Historic Preservation Office.
Any other questions or comments on this matter? If not, okay.
Yeah.
Police?
Please.
I know we're running late, so I'll just say we're down for June, 22 incidents versus 27, 19%. It was a good month. If anybody has any questions, I'll answer them. Thank you.
If not, okay. Capital construction. Sorry, Mike.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that I've always understood the importance of the East Side access for Long Islanders. Now, I also know that part of it I'll be providing a one-seat ride to the Shake Shack for everyone. So, now putting jokes aside, just wanted to report on a couple of things. In Queens, the soft-ground tunneling started. We actually report that we'll be still mining in Hard Rock. We have actually out of it, and we started to pick up speed in that area. The second machine, the Tunnel A, will be starting at the end of the month, beginning of next month. And the ground freezing for the safe haven is ongoing. We hope to arrive there just before the ground is totally frozen. But again, that actually is moving well. Manhattan, just wanted to mention that right now we completed our tunneling in Manhattan, and any one of you would have seen the newspaper today. We'll be burying the tunnel boring machine at the end of the tunnel under 37th Street, under Park Avenue and 37th Street, and I think that we're pouring concrete on Wednesday, so that's going to be gone. The concrete placement in the Grand Central westbound cavern continues, and we're doing about 50 feet a week. So we've poured about 200 feet by now, so the work is moving forward there. And we are placing concrete in the tunnels on 3 separate locations. The excavation for the final wellway in the that will connect the station with the concourse is right now proceeding, and we expect to complete it shortly. And we started to, in fact, the contractor has begun concrete placement on one of the escalator wellways. What is going to be next in Manhattan is we're going to, in effect, expect to start blasting so we can complete the caverns once the concreting on the upper side is done. And we have at this point, in terms of procurement, we have a low bidder for one of our contracts on the and that was actually about $2 million below our estimate, so that's actually pretty good. And we expect to award the Queens Structure Plaza Substation by the end of July. This is a Perini job. And we look forward to opening bids for the cavern finishes contract. that is going to happen soon. With that, I'll complete my
Any
East Side
questions
access.
on East Side Access? Okay, Michael, you want to do the procurement you have?
David?
The action item?
Capital Construction has one action item this month. The item's located on page 146. The item is requesting approval to enter a settlement agreement with the joint venture Schiavone Kiewit to resolve several claims under the East Side Access Northern Boulevard crossing contract in the amount of $6.5 million.
Charles?
According to this on page 146, the contract CQ028 was terminated for default. Is there any possibility of claim over?
We have, Charles, in fact, we defaulted and did collect $83 million on that particular event. That was all applied to the new contract. Unfortunately, I do not believe that we spent some additional dollars in order to fix what we found at the end of the day. The contract that Pyle had included, actually, the work that is being done now for a contract that is about 86 or 87 million, I'm not sure, with the joint venture of Schiavone Kiewit. So, although work was done, although we collected $83 million, appears to be that the fixing was actually pretty expensive.
Who was the contractor who was defaulted?
Pyle. No longer, I do not believe they are any longer around.
Is there a motion to, second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Long Island Railroad procurements?
Yes, there are two Long Island Railroad procurements in this month's package totaling $30.5 million. There is one item in the non-competitive section in the amount of $29.5 and one item in the competitive section in the amount of $1 million. There are two items that I want to just highlight. In the non-competitive section, the contract for $29.5 million is an all-agency procurement led by Long Island Railroad, and it covers Metro North, New York City Transit, MTA Capital Construction, and it is a sole source omnibus contract with Ansaldo STS, and that is for engineering services and parts required to support Long Island Railroad, Transit, and Metro North's current inventory of equipment designed and manufactured by Ansaldo, and this is various wayside switch and signal equipment necessary for the operation of the railroads and New York City Transit subway. We also have included in the omnibus contract one item unique to Long Island Railroad, which is a retrofit modification of its fleet of rolling stock to allow cars to operate within the East Side Access tunnels. To accomplish this, we need to modify our automatic speed control system, which is designed and manufactured by Ansaldo. And we will add a 250 megahertz circuit. It's really a signal code that we will pick up in the circuitry, and it will be converted from the currently utilized 100 hertz. There are two opportunities that this provides for us. One is we'll get greater efficiency of equipment in the tunnels. We will be able to maximize capacity by having additional codes which will regulate the speeds of the trains going through the tunnels to service East Side Access. Second, it provides, in anticipation of a better system, positive train control, it provides a limited protection for what we call misroute of diesel equipment. The diesel equipment will not be sensitive to the 250 hertz. If it encounters it, the speed will drop, the code will drop immediately to 15, and all engineers will be, trained very thoroughly to stop the train immediately. It means that they are on the wrong route. As many of you know, the bi-level coaches do not fit into the East Side Access tunnels. They were designed in, the 60s and 70s before we procured the equipment, and that equipment cannot travel in those tunnels. So it is very important that we have ways in which we can ensure that we protect against misroute. The ideal approach will be positive train control. But we want to have this system in place in the event that this needs to be used before positive train control is fully rolled out. The timeline for positive train control is a little bit longer than East Side Access. This would provide a very important step in the meantime. So with that, we ask for a vote on this non-competitive procurement.
Questions? Charles?
On page 153, you point out that the hardware and the software are proprietary, and this apparently is, again, another single source kind of situation. Has any thought been given to duplicating the activity that Michael has been pursuing of breaking up these contracts in order to induce other people to compete or to lower the bids?
We do try to pursue that. Unfortunately, this is very integral to a vital signal system, so it must be integrated and fully tested in order to protect the overall safety of the train operations. As you will note in this staff summary, we do highlight that we are working diligently to look at whether some of the equipment could be procured through our PTC effort, which would give us a positive train stop as opposed to just a signal drop. But positive train control is not a proven technology. It is falling further behind in terms of industry development because of radio spectrum issues. Howard and I will be giving you an update on that. There's been a lot of activity in Washington, which is beginning to recognize that the 2015 date is not doable. So we believe this is a very important interim step that we should put in place to protect the fleet.
My concern here is trying to get away from these single source agreements. The next one that you have with S&C is exactly the same problem.
We'll talk about that one, but we need a vote on this one.
Is there a motion on the non-competitive Long Island Railroad? I'll move it. Second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
And the second one is a change order for an agreement with Standard Parking Corporation. It covers both warranty work that has to be supported by them and a possible extension of the current contract. What we are trying to do under our parking strategy is bring more parking areas under a revenue plan to generate revenue for Long Island Railroad. We would like to put this out in a bid that allows one company to operate more than one site. We want to put an extension in place for Mineola, which is one of the most attractive sites for someone to want to operate, so that it, becomes coterminous with all these other parking locations that we want to put in place. So the bid is, and the procurement process is not ready, so we want to keep them in place until it is ready.
Charles?
If you look at page 157, you see that there is no timeline or estimate as to when this will be ready or when the issues will result in a contract for the location. Why, if you have something that is so open-ended, did you not consider putting out a bid for this?
No, that is in fact what we're doing, is putting out a bid for it. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. All we want to do is a short-term extension of the current agreement so that we have an operator while we plan for a replacement.
Which would include the Mont Ronkonkoma and the other
and additional sites that we've identified,
right.
A couple of sites that we think could be brought under revenue control.
I'll move that one. Yes.
Heine, would we be able to have So since this sounds like a general policy issue or policy change, would you be able to give us a short presentation when it is
Yes.
fixed up?
I would assume that the
Right.
board would have to
Right.
approve the
You have to
RFP
approve
anyway,
the-
yes.
right, the process, that's
Right.
correct.
Right, okay.
And we'll identify those geographic locations that we're trying to bring
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, okay. I'll move the Standard Parking Corporation. Second, any questions? All in favor? Aye, okay.
And there are no ratifications.
Howard?
Okay, why don't we do our one action
right
item?
ahead.
So we had a walk-on item, a staff summary asking your approval to start the public hearing process for potential further fare increases in the state of Connecticut proposed by the Connecticut DOT. I apologize for the late notice. We were informed of this over the last week or so, so that's why we could not have put it in the book. So basically, I'm asking your approval to approve this item so we can get the public hearing started.
Second, any questions on that? All in favor? Aye, okay.
Okay, good, thank you. Then we have, hold on, we have 4 different procurements. One is a joint procurement with Long Island Railroad for payments, and also with New York City Transit as well for payments, credit card processing. A second one is for a wreckage retention consultant, the third for some shop equipment, and the fourth is the one I mentioned initially, which is the proposal for a change order with Kawasaki for the procurement of 25 single non-powered cars. Just a minute on this. This will allow us, I mentioned, to retire all the old New Haven Line cars. They will have a complete fleet. This is the first time. It's also for Metro North. We have bought single non-powered cars, which allows us to run odd consist trains. It gives us significant efficiencies associated with that. So that's a first for us as well. From a customer standpoint, people will see these cars will look very similar to the M8s, which people are very pleased with. So that will be a major improvement. This was a change order. We spent a lot of time with MTA Audit identifying the appropriate price. MTA Audit did a lot of work to give us a range, which we then negotiated the price with Kawasaki within that range. So we're very pleased that we're at a point in Connecticut agreed to provide it 65%. So we're very pleased we're able to get those different pieces all together, and I'll be asking your approval for those.
Any questions?
I
Charles?
just have one comment. You and I have had this conversation about Kawasaki's delays
Right.
in the past. My question is, what is the estimated delivery time for these cars?
Chuck, these cars will follow the 380 base cars. We're anticipating they'll begin delivery in 2014. And then that will complete the order.
And then you will have a deadline for them to complete?
Yes, they have a deadline, and they have liquidated damages if they miss their deadlines.
Jim moved, second. All in favor? Aye. I think we skipped one, page 154, Howard.
Is that me?
Yeah,
Oh,
S&C
sorry about
distribution,
that.
the non-competitive, I don't want to...
Oh, yeah, my apologies.
That's
We
okay.
we had one non-competitive with them, joint procurement, which we led for signal equipment, various relay equipment to test our signal system.
Second. All in favor? Okay, and we have two on page 168 for MTA Capital Construction.
Capital Construction has two competitive procurements this month, totaling $10.16 million. The first item is for 2 modifications to the East Side Access Harold Structures Part 1 contract, totaling $9,344,286. And the second item is for a modification to the East Side Access 44th Street Vent Plant and 245th Park Avenue interest contract to incorporate design changes, totaling $667,527.
Questions? Charles?
Page 169. Why were you unable to get, what was the excuse offered for failure to give you an entry permit by Amtrak?
There was an agreement, a site agreement that needed to be signed between Capital Construction and Amtrak, and the agreement was not signed in time.
What?
Basically, I believe Amtrak had some problems with some of the design and some of the access.
That problem seems to have caused a significant cash cost on our part.
Well, it's not the contractor's fault. So it was our responsibility to get them the access, and we were unable to.
My concern is we're spending millions of
I'm
dollars.
sorry,
because we
you are
couldn't get
correct.
an
I
entry
think
permit.
I would like to actually, Alan, are you around? Yes. Could you come to a microphone and explain the issue?
Yes, I believe the negotiations with Amtrak just took longer than it was anticipated. Amtrak was looking to get some greater agreements before they would allow us onto the property. This is a critical contract. We had awarded the contract with plenty of time to get this agreement, and it just took longer.
And how much does Amtrak cost us?
We can get back to you on the total that we've allocated to Amtrak.
I'd like to know what it was that the failure to give us that entry permit cost the MTA, so that we can make it clear to Amtrak this is no way to do business.
This particular issue for the access delay was only the slightly under the $1 million that we're seeking.
I'd like to know detail.
Is there a motion to approve? Second. All in favor? Aye. With that, I think we can finally adjourn at this late time. Thank you all very much.